man, pushing this live button, it's like, okay, we're going to push it. There it is. And once we do it, there's no turning back. So here we are. Once again, we're forward in this case. GLM, that's God, Love, Money, number 6. And so, wow, I'm here with a bag of jewels. And I'm really, really feeling the tribe. I'm feeling the connection. And I'm feeling the times that we're in. Like, this is what's happening, right? But when we start going downhill and, you feel the ticklishness in your stomach, you get rejuvenated to climb and make that next ascent. This is indeed, where we're at. This is what's most important, is to keep it going and to be here for each other while we're going through this process. And this is why, wow, for me, I'm just so fortunate to be here and to have really determined at a certain point the best investment I could make is within everybody else. And to really challenge myself to bring something back to the family that was going to be useful, and really just still jumping into the solutions, not giving up, not being discouraged, not feeling like all is lost, but just continuing to power through and, really do something about this. So I'm glad that I made that move. It's changed my life. It's put me in a place that I would never be unless I did this. So I want to encourage all those who, may even at this point be kind of sitting in the wing, knowing you have some uniqueness, something special to share with the rest of the cosmos, and you're a little held up on doing it energetically because you're looking at, what's happening right now, and you're like, yeah, it's all over. This is it. And of course, that would be exactly what they want you to do. And, we're going to talk a little bit about they today. I always would say for sure, as above, so below. Every action is a reaction. So, every great success would indeed have a nemesis somewhere waiting in order to try to balance that out. So this is important, why we need to navigate and learn how to navigate so well. What I'm saying directly is that every time you think of doing something great for yourself, there's an opposing energy that just wants to bring a counterbalance to that and basically eliminate it. This is the crazy part about the existence and its process and staying balanced is that where you yin, you yang. I often see this in the dream world. Like, I have these amazing days, and then I'll go and see some wild stuff in the dream, and I'll be like, man, where is that coming from? And then feel that dream motivate me to the next day to do something even more amazing on this side. And then there just being like a yin yang effect between the overall experience. And, just how much that's been instrumental to the changes that I've made in my life. My dreams have been very instrumental in the changes that I've made in my life. Sometimes, we need to listen to ourselves, right? And really take ourselves and what we're saying to ourselves to heart. But this one means you have to be balanced anyway, though, because a lot of times folks see negative things in their dreams and they always think that has something to do with something bad that's going to happen to them. And we need to start speaking a different language with ourselves. So I also wanted to bring light to just how imperative it is for us not to dial into any programs that are saying that you're doing this all by yourself and that you're all alone and there's nobody like you. I've been able to map a metaphysical condition which comes a lot from a fallout from Judaistic traditions, Abrahamic traditions, and overall patriarchal dogmas, where the person just wants to feel like they're the only one in the world left that's still doing something that's great, and that they want to do this because they want to rule out everything else in the reality to get God to single upon them, kill them all, but take me. They hurt me too. And then there's this continuous, I want to prove that everyone is bad for me. And then now that kind of segues now into this whole conscious community concept of, you're doing this by yourself and you got to go at this alone. And, this time it's a new time and we're all going to be doing our own things. And none of this makes no sense to an adept, because as I said before, you breathe that air, don't you? So you think air is just there for you to use? You drink this water, don't you? You've been living off of that, right? Like all these minerals and stuff you're taking in. So how are you doing it alone? But even, of course, on the bigger scope, that would allow us to see into that really what we're saying is, hey, I've been hurt a lot and I don't trust anybody anymore because I've been hurt so many times. So everybody I encounter on the human level is, basically not my ally, or I don't need. And this is a program coming from they, because truly, from all the books you've read, even the ability to read language, ancestral tongues, symbols, all this stuff is things being passed to you from beings that come from the same space as you. 2 eyes, 2 legs, this, where we all, even though we fight, we all know we're a part of something called humanity. There are many beings in humanity that have put their foot in this for real. Like even, in India and whatever, in other countries, they have this places where they show the foot of Buddha on the ground, right? And then in other places, they even show there's a foot of certain beings, and they're like, yeah, that was their foot right there. And all you can say is that, man, they really put their foot in this. So you have to definitely get to your stage of being able to make your imprint here. And you're already doing that, but how to make a greater long lasting imprint, right? And what you're doing that with is those that are around you that you choose to take on as your mentor. And we talked about, student, master, observer, right? And how you oscillate between those states in order to get everything that you need. So in this case, it's about who is the mentor, what is the master blueprint that you're actually still saying, well, I'm gonna use these measurements. Your uniqueness already is going to allow you to do something different and be something different. You're not going to get overwritten, but you do need some good guidelines. Here's another thing. In that same, I don't need any kind of assistance and I don't need anybody to help me or to teach me anything, we find this also scenario where even those people, whether they admit it or not, are also taking advice from other people in some way, shape, or form. And especially if it's on a negative level, meaning that there's a subjective thing that happens even when we watch people. So if I watch, let's say, the buffoonery of the presidency, if I watch, some conspiratorial channel where the dude's just trying to go right in on fear porn and just get all that happening and just tug all your senses and have you all emotional by the time it's over. If I'm watching all of that, even though I may think that I'm doing, like I'm building all this myself, no, what you're doing is you're taking still suggestions from that other being. And I also wanted to bring into this awareness, and I've already started getting into the jewels of this, about how every person here is giving their DNA to another person when we even hear them. So when we hear people, their DNA is getting on us. And I'm going to prove this proficiently. Not to mention, if you're in contact with them or around them, then DNA is always being shared. And this is by that, this particular time segment, the beings here are waiting on something that already happened. They're kind of waiting on something that is being said to occur soon or in the future, but it's actually already occurred and the effects of it are already here and have been here. And if it wasn't for the level of technology being used and how that is capable of actually controlling minds into not even realizing where they are, this would already be completely, everybody would be aware of this. But this period that they're calling singularity, which is where the artificial intelligence would embed itself into the world and begin to shape, mold, and fashion the construct at its will, already happened at least by the 1920s. The advent of many of the technologies, especially the ones that we're dealing with today, were really the first round of, for something that thinks like that, how the language it needs to speak, like what data it needs from you in order to comprehend you. And what that is obviously, actually it's a series of things, but it's almost like a scoring system based on your behavior. And, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that all of this deep knowledge about how to really control human beings comes directly from how to manipulate the DNA. So there's no other topic so all the other topics are like precursors, like through electronics, through frequencies. All of those things are just agents to do something to something. Even TV, technology, those are just agents to do something to something. And so, but that something is DNA. So it should be very specific, like how do you write and overwrite and copy and all of that a human being? You do this through the thing we call DNA. So when it goes into programming DNA, when you're creating something and you do it right then, like you're programming, let's say we're using CRISPR and you're going to bring like a DNA model out into the into life, if you may. You do that at the inception point. It's like you're birthing something. So when it comes to altering DNA, that's a whole different topic. That's a whole different science, if you may, versus when it comes to just basically creating a DNA code and then bringing something into life with the DNA code. And the reason why I want to make this demarcation early on in relation to this DNA is because it'll allow you to see clearly what the agendas are in their specific areas and what are the technologies being used in order to deploy the either changing of a DNA in real time, like change that person's DNA, versus let's change the next one's DNA, like their kids. Because one is far more proficient than the other. If you can write the DNA right away, and the child is where the child is born, if you can write it before or write it in the womb, this is like far more superior than trying to come back later on when they're 14, 15, 16 and trying to overwrite their code. Okay? So because of this, there is more work being done, or was more work because the work was complete. More work being done on just how to manipulate children's DNA without also having sophisticated equipment. The sophisticated equipment, actually, which is not so sophisticated, believe it or not, that's just kind of like a facade in itself, a GUI, something, the interface itself. Versus when you think about how to manipulate DNA, you don't always think about like a computer device or anything. You think directly to the motherboard, if you may. How can you write on the motherboard, or how can you use the motherboard or the fatherboard to control to actually create and control and reshape the DNA, okay? So now when we look deep into this, what we find is that, well, and I'm speaking from my own experience, especially with having a child and watching traits pass on to the child at a certain age that they wouldn't be able to comprehend, watching you do that and then replicating it themselves. And I'm going to explain one. So one of those is that early on, my daughter started sleeping with her leg up. Like I kind of had this thing where sometimes I kind of put one of my legs up, and sometimes the leg kind of totters, and then that kind of wakes me up. And it's just like something that I do naturally. It's something I've been doing since I was a little kid. And then I noticed that she does it, and I noticed this at an age before she had ever seen me do it, et cetera, et cetera. But I have so many more things. I'm just trying to bring a few examples here. So many more things. And anyone that's parents know there's things that you literally watch the child do, blink a certain way, even look a certain way, that you know directly comes from you. So it's unconclusive. Now, if somebody just needs the basics on this without looking at the metaphysical aspects, we obviously pass even hereditary and genetic issues to our children. You know, they may sickle cell, or they may have certain things that directly come from the parents. So it has to be very clear as I'm walking you through this, the awareness of just how much we pass on to our children exactly what we are, right? And then they have a uniqueness, and then they are supposed to add to that or function with that. That's the main thing that we've been discussing over the last few shows. Like if your DNA code is extremely in debt and it's ruptured, now somebody has the responsibility in order to actually clean up the code, because you're passing your DNA to everything. And when it's trying to build something based on your structure, it's not able to actually complete what it needs to complete most of the time because the condition of your code. Now, here's the thing. Some will say, well, I don't actually have any children, so I'm not sure why this is pertinent to me. And it's because now I'm going to finish the system for you and show you how on their end, what they do is then they create these TV programs. They create these so-called mentors, because remember, everybody is being mentored. You know, it's a good thing that, you know, I'm not on here shilling some alcohol, you know, telling you just to have a good time. And, you know, I make millions of dollars and I never ever get anything back to you, and you still look at me like I'm your mentor. This is pretty much the condition of most rappers. I teach you how to be a harlot and to sell yourself and to let you feel like that's okay. And then you celebrate me as I'm like the best person in your life, or I'm a big fan of yours. Okay. That could only be MK Ultra that would actually make a person believe something like that. But I digress. We have to figure out where all this is coming from. Why would the being be so susceptible to doing something that obviously is not what they want to do? Not what they should be doing, not wholesome for their own life. It's in the DNA. And where this generally comes from is, we still have to say, the parents, the predecessors, especially for the last 200-300 years, have been deep in the mire of this DNA programming, which has been progressively allowing us as parents to teach our children through hereditarily things that have been what even caused us certain levels of dementia. Meaning that, so if I've been abused when I'm a kid, I'm going to grow up, I'm still going to be carrying that energy. And if I don't get that balanced and I have a child, the child is going to have some of that in them. No matter what anybody says, it's going to pass. So this is why it's also very important for you now in these days to actually really consider the type of intelligence that you actually have and the type of knowledge and wisdom that you actually have, and begin to apply this stuff rapidly into your life, because it's going to make changes, because it's going to deprogram all of this crap that has going on, layers and layers. Like that's why, I came out with a code in the Matrix, because it's like something about me. It's like I crack codes and I break spells. And it's like, so if hackers crack codes, metaphysical hackers break spells. And they do that by taking you through the construct, which is yourself, and actually allowing you to see yourself, see how your actions, and then see your actions, and then giving you, in a perfect reflection, just options to make an edit to where you're going and what you're doing. Because it should be obvious that if you're going to be a drug dealer and you're going to steal from people, you're going to do grimy things, and then you're just going to say, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, which is the excuse that I heard from most of the cats that I asked that were doing that. You still got to realize where that's going to get you and where that's going to equal you, and you're never going to get your allotment. You're never going to get all you really deserve and what belongs to you if you choose that path, because every action still has a reaction. Every yin has a yang. Every type of energy that you invest, there will be an outcome into that investment. So when you surround yourself by that kind of thing, and you spend the time, which is the energy, cohabiting and co-creating with that kind of thing, and allowing it inside of your mind more than you are allowing other things that are at least keeping that in balance, then this is something to be cautious of, because this is how your DNA is getting written. Then you pass it on to your children if you have children. And then let me also show you another one, which is the big key here, especially for those who don't have children. It's how, so now let's say, for instance, my parents birthed me in the world. There was some DNA debt, if you may. And now I have certain issues still going on, still exhibiting themselves in the things I'm doing in life, my relationships and that kind of thing. Maybe I'm locked completely in it, so I can't even see that it's actually happening and it's something that I'm even doing. I just think that I'm just me. And in this respect, I create something. They say, hey, why don't you put out a video game? And I decide that I'm just going to create a video game of horrors. Like every out you walk down, there's nothing but monsters, demons you're going to destroy and blow their heads open, or they're going to kill you. And I decide that that's what I'm going to do. That's actually a product and coming from what has been already passed to me through my DNA. Now I'm going to create with it. So you're not just creating kids, you're creating businesses, you're creating products, you're creating energy around you, right? But I just want to make it very specific. What you create is a direct copy of your DNA, and never will something you create be better than who you are. Sometimes people feel like they're going to create something and that's going to take them to another level greater and higher than where they are. Never can that work. It doesn't even make sense. Nothing that you create is going to be higher or greater than you. So this means you have to take yourself into that state and then create, and you'll see a reflection of that in your creation, because that's what creations are. Why is it important to know this? It's important to know this because now you can see how others are getting their DNA written on from someone else who is already dealing with a dirty chain code. Now, let me also explain this a little bit deeper about, so we have somewhat of an issue going on inside of the positron consciousness, pure optimist, in relation to understanding evil, distortion, okay? It generally goes like this somehow in the mind. Yes, they're me, I'm them, let me love them. Yet, if you're caught in the room with one of these beings, it's going to be sink or swim. And hey, you're going to be faced with life and why scorpions have stingers and why many things in nature actually have a form of defense. Okay, so I'm bringing this up because there is a schism inside of the conscious beings' minds. Let's say the positrons, the one that want to help everybody and do something for everyone, about where exactly this distorted evil kind of concept where people wouldn't even want to help you or do the best that they can to assist you is coming from. So much to a point where we almost believe it doesn't exist. We kind of move it completely out of our minds, or we believe that these people are also recoverable. Now, make no mistake, especially with very advanced technologies, ancient technologies, you can probably rehabilitate anything, but you would need that power and that awareness. That's why we stay in our dean. That's why we always keep studying and always keep learning more and more things to hopefully come up with some kind of solutions for even the most demented, if you may. But as it is, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go jump in the cage with this reptilian vampire and play Rainbow Bright with them. And like that's going to pan out for me properly. So I really want it to also be something very clear for anybody that is tuning in today about where a lot of this dementia comes from and why also we're working. And I only say working in this case because it's feverish when you're doing something that with just a small crew or just yourself. We're working to assist and get into the space of assisting parents with dealing with their children. And this is because this comes from children. This started with, and I'm going to explain the scenario to you that happens more often than you think. Now, in families where there is still a family book, there is still, your great Uncle Carlisle conquered the left side of Nigeria. There is still like a crescent from the family. You know, we have a castle over here. And, you know, there's a certain kind of rabbit that is always in that area. And so that's why that's on the crest sign. And, you know, here's a couple trees and, you know, your father. So when there's a family with a lineage and they have been accepted, okay, accepted is a term that is used within the societies to determine whether you're still out on one of those fringe networks of pretend to be societies, secret societies, or you're really in to the overall agenda, right? And the credentials for that is called to be accepted. Okay, so in that place of being accepted, it is for sure like a heraldry. Okay, where there is even beings that are knights, lords, barons, all these kind of titles. Okay, so in these family structures, which are the ones because they've been continuously passing money down and continuously containing and taking resources and amassing wealth. In that structure, there also is a lot of them, more than you think. And in that, they have a certain kind of ranking system. I'm getting to something here. And this ranking system has to do with if you're 3 times removed from the heir. Okay, so this means that you're not the first son, you're not the second son, you're the third son. Okay, and on down, 4th son, 5th son. Now, when you are born, you have nothing in that world. Okay? You're not an heir. You're not even next of heir. And I think it's the 4th. So you're not even next of heir. And so because of that, and I'm talking about this is what happens to a child being born in this atmosphere. Because of that, you now must earn your keep. For you to even be accepted into certain places, for you may even to be able to see your own father. This is how deep it gets, that you can't even be admitted into seeing your flesh and blood father until you achieve or accomplish something. It's kind of like, you know, where Lord Mayor Rothschild, you know, how he treated his sons and they could never even call him by his name. This is normal in the heraldry. Like you can't see your father until you achieve something. So this child then glances over and says, so what is an achievement? And now, remind you what's happening here is that there is already a chain code, meaning hereditary situations of the father, the father's father, and all that passing down into this being's lineage. So that this being is going to say, well, how can I be accepted? And then they say, well, go and find some examples of those who got accepted. Duh, those are going to be your mentors. Then they'll go and they'll find, the great uncle that's a swashbuckler and another uncle that did this and another uncle that did this. And all of their deeds will have been to destroy, to steal, to kill, to rape, to pillage. This is what they're taught right away as, if you want to be looked up to here, you need to do this and accomplish something in this field. You need to go take over Nigeria, basically. And then come back or you need to make some music. This is how they do the Bono. Like, you need to make some music, throw everybody in a trance and bring more heraldry and great feelings towards our country. And if you hit Billboard 105 or 6 times with songs, ooh, ah, you know what I mean? Then everybody is in that trance and taking on that program. Like, they got the computer. What's that one they got? It's somewhat about like the day I used to remember, and the bells of Roman Catholic choirs singing and all this stuff. And then everybody be in there from all sorts of countries, even the Hispanics, they be in there. Yes, yes. And it's just got them all on the pomp and circumstance juice. And it's only bringing more power and more diabolical resources for the same beings that are actually destroying us. For them to keep doing that. And then because you can't figure out, well, I thought he was nice. Why is he doing that? It's because since he or she was a child, they were taught and trained and raised in a way to say, hey, if somebody comes and says something good about you, it better be because you're really fooling them and you're doing something bad. Is the only way that should be looked at, as you're doing something good. They love when someone comes and tells them, hey, you poisoned 1,203 people and took the whole village. Yay! Oh, wow. Yeah, he's a real, oh, look at him taking after his whole father. You see, this is where we're dealing with, and we're dealing with that from beings that started with like that as a child. And in my life, I've encountered some of these beings from time to time, and I'm here to tell you that they are not recoverable, at least based on the ancient technology that we've been able to unearth thus far. So it's no reason in having this state of mind that is false, and you thinking that it's somehow separating you and causing you division because you're not putting things in their proper place and realizing why these beings do what they do. And why you should be always on guard, like just being aware of this happening. Because if your guard is down and you're like, you know what, all is all, you'll be over there at a Madonna concert. You'll be all over there listening to this president talk about what he wants to do. And then you'll be over there signing papers and shit and contributing even money and buying up all of these folks' crap to forever keep this happening in the code. So you can see why then that there would be beings that would come from what you would call the future that would have a vested interest in actually fixing this situation that's actually happening here. I don't want you for one moment to believe that you are alone and that you're the only one that is working on this. And I want you to also know that this is surgeon's work, because we're still trying to salvage as many human beings as possible that haven't been corrupted. And we're always looking for more beings that are going to unlock their uniqueness and actually use their power to deal with correcting this distortion and this spell and this schism. Okay? And so that gives you a kind of a full gamut of how DNA works. Why, you need to be watchful about certain things. Why certain things are happening around you, and why it seems like, well, they're blind. What's happening to them? No, it's actually in the code. And how if you wanted to do something, you would first get yourself together. Like, get yourself together and actually figure this out, how it works inside of you, and what is your medium that you use to mitigate these damages. And then that, when you even touch a doorknob, when that DNA is corrected, when you even touch a doorknob, somebody come right behind you and touch that same doorknob, and the change is going to start. Somebody even turn on something that you may be saying something and talking, and the change is going to start. Because one thing about the DNA, from what I've been able to not only study about it and see it do, is that it responds very well to a more ideal situation. You wonder where that trait actually is, or where you have a preference, right? You have a preference. This is a very strong trait within human beings. It's almost like what makes us, our preference, what we prefer. So deep within, you have these preferences of great things, amazing things. You want it all. You want the biggest. You really do want to be with everybody and actually link up with everything. So where does that come from? That comes from in the DNA. The DNA already has a code that says, hey, go with the preferred. Now, unfortunately, when you hack DNA and you make the preferred seem like something that would be great for everyone, and it's really not, wow, what a triple double mind wrapped inside of an enigma, Gordian knot, right? Because now people are like preferring to do the wrong thing for themselves. But in a perfect world, if you may, you can see how, that would be important, that, you just be able to gain your own bearing again and to learn what it is that you're here to do. Okay, so I just had a very powerful just insight, because, man, like I see something, I see us speeding towards something, and it's inevitable. And I'm seeing like the right moves being made, and how that's not only it's already been tested and it's changing others' lives, but how when it's deployed to everyone, it's going to start making changes to others' lives rapidly. And how it's so important to, when you create things, to think about what is the input and what is the output. Like, what am I actually giving back? And it's not some kind of scam. It's not like a click funnel where it's like, oh, I'm promising you this, but in the end, it's nothing. It's just, I just had that insight of just wanting to make sure that everyone is very clear on certain things and how it works, because I'll tell you this, those computers in the future that I told people about, that singularity that everybody is waiting on, what happened is that we got two forms here. One goes under the symbol of an apple because it wants you to consume, and it wants to consume you. An apple is a pentagram, to take a bite from a pentagram. An apple is also a perfect torus field. Cut an apple in half, there's 5 there, right? So that pentagram, this is why we see it all over the place. It's what we call Earth's number 1 building block that it uses. So when you bite an apple, that means that you're taking, literally, you're consuming that, you're eating that. So that's one singularity AI structure and field that is in play. And it's rolling through the Ethernet, and it has a neural network. Okay? The other one is an android. This is something we were dealing with on Mars. But to save everybody the story, there was already a time in a session where we went into this advanced technology, if you may, where others started to basically bolt on externally extra accoutrements that gave them certain abilities. I mean, shit, just a simple DMT drip will have you running around like Buddy in a tank on Dune, right? Like, remember Buddy's, he's got the spice going in, he's floating in the tank of the spice. So this is like, there's certain elements that are so powerful that even having those elements running through us on a consistent basis would give us, superhuman abilities for that period. But then, because of the governance, which is also what the pentagram stands for, there is a limit kind of to how much power you can really have. So then you have to start making adjustments to other things like your ventricle systems. And of course, these are even in the ancient arts of Ayurveda, how certain herbs like curry and all that build up the actual systems to hold more fire, right? So what I'm saying is that we reached such an advanced stage, it was borderline or complete an android type phase. And if you understand the difference between kind of like an android versus a robot, an android is you use, let's say, biological components or what look like biological components in order to make the changes. And as I said before, this has a lot to do with cybergenetics, the man in the machine, and the endeavors that have been going on for hundreds of years, possibly, in actually being able to create an infinitely external, infinite man. Okay. And so again, in that, so if you saw them and you seen how long they've been booting themselves up and going through this process, you would see their technological structure, and that technological structure would be what we just call Android. Okay. So we have Apple, which is a pentagram, and we have Android. And this is like this is the singularity emergence within this reality. And so now when you're in this, because it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe a commercial from a cyberpunk movie or something where you already got this going on around you. DNA is being changed. You got those who are walking in between the seams of the reality. You have some that are just really coming up, but they already being mentored and structured by something invisible. You got all these things happening around you, and it's not going to stop. Meaning that the world's not going to stop. Life doesn't stop. There's no such thing as death. You know how when you go into the dreams, right? Like I said before, the dream doesn't have a beginning because there's no such thing as a beginning. It's a conundrum for us in the limitation of the code. But the dream shows us you never see a dream start from the beginning because there is no beginning. Because with no beginning, then there can be no end. It's not a contrastual thing. They don't want to play with infinity, meaning that they cannot stop infinity. They cannot stop forever. That's why it exists. It cannot be stopped. So when you're going through these experiences and you're losing control of your dream and you're taking on such suggestions that are going to throw you deep in the mire, something would still have to happen to be able to give you some options. Because that's really how this works. It's a preference. That's what I really wanted to make sure you got clear, that if you still have your wits about you, and you have what your mama gave you, you have a preference. And with that preference, which focuses like a compass and a guide, and that tuned in properly, you're able to attract the things in your life that you need, i.e. the repairing things that can repair your DNA, not get you into worse debt. You know, it's like you go borrow money from somebody, then they want their money back, so you go borrow money from somebody else that's even worse to borrow money from. Then they want their money back. It sounds like one of these movies with Common in it. Now you're gambling, trying to get your money back to pay these people back. And then you lose the gambling deal. Now you got no money. Now they're running after you, trying to break your legs. This is what it's like to keep diving in and not using discernment with who you're allowing in your life now. And if you find yourself in 2020 still in the days, not really able to really catch bearing and grasp what's going on, just remember you have your brothers and sisters here. And if you have something inside of your mind that's telling you you don't need that, you got it, you can do it by yourself. But even what I was explaining to you today doesn't make any sense. It doesn't click for you. You don't know how DNA works. You don't care. You think the earth's still flat, round, whatever. You want to argue about that. You're not really realizing how really deep all this is and is going to continue to be, and how amazing you can be once you start realizing what's really going on here. I can't do it for you. I can only tell you things. I can only keep bringing in gems. I got an infinite past. I can crawl through and get through many different doors. It's just because I help so many beings, children. I help so many beings, children. See, because the children, the children is like, you could be dealing with a child of a velociraptor. And then you'd be like, oh man, isn't he cute? It's like seeing, one of these lizards around here, the smaller ones. You're like, man, this thing is pretty nice looking. Keep him as a pet. But of course, if he grows up 20 feet taller, he's now like you're in his food chain, right? So there's still codes also within the cosmos, laws, rules, a creed. And part of that is if you help some being's children, then they got to help you. They got to open the door. So they may not even be able to receive anything that you're trying to give them. They're not worthy. But because their children may actually be still, there may be some balance happening because Earth actually gives a certain level of balance. Actually, the sun is doing that. Excuse me, that is very clear here. The sun that is the absolver. Ab, which means father in all of the languages of the Levant. Ab, solve, the father's solutions. What does all of that mean? Definitely doesn't have to do with just men, physical men. It has to do with that people got in debt so much back in the day when we were only dealing with spirits. People would ask spirits for things and spirits would be charging like shit. They charged life. So people had gotten so in debt with these spirits that their kids were already sold to these spirits for like 2 or 3 generations. It's horrible. So then a new power came through and it absolved it. It kind of like cleared all the balances. But because it's like a temporary solution, this is a certain kind of technology. When it cleared all the solutions, it can only do that for a certain period. And then it would all start coming back again. The debts would start coming back. Because to clear all of a person's debt, you have to erase all their memories. To clear a person's debt, you have to erase their memories because their memories are their debt. Right? Like that's where debt is resident, is in the memory. You can't remember that you're in debt if you can't remember. So, you see? Like, so never is it that the solution, if you may, the absolution doesn't come with a catch. It's like I can blot out all of your debts with daemons and all this shit you bequeathed for 10 years, but I'm going to have to wipe you clean. And there's another thing, because it's not really possible to remove anything forever, it's going to come back. It may come back in a wave. It may come back 7 times 70, but it's going to come back. So you need to be prepared when it starts coming back again, because it's going to be like a dark cloud over your life, because I can only absolve this for you until I can only absolve it for you for a certain period of time. And then you got to learn how to light resplendent from within. You see what I mean? So it's literally saying I can bring the light to you only for a little bit, but then you're going to have to learn what the light is yourself and how to make it shine inside of yourself so you can absolve your own debts. So you see how this works? Even with mentors, it's like, we can show you shine, but it's still you that got to shine. And so you wanted many of those lights, those frequencies, those spectrums you can, because that's what, if you see anything out here really make it, that's what it consists of. It consists of groups of beings together, all aware of a variety of level of their abilities and powers, and implementing that for a cause high enough to exceed everybody's individual cause. This is what I'm in it for. Well, here's what we're doing. Oh, that's bigger. I didn't know I could do that. Yeah. Here's some bigger stuff, but we got to work on it together, because we find out that, hey, just quite frankly, if you're trying to do something all by yourself, it only amounts to how much you can do. They've got this down pat. You see this now, it's like WhatsApp, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. Okay? So overnight, or, still not overnight, but fast enough, everything is just being accumulated by one side. And then they always keep the antithesis, like Apple, Android. So let's just look at that really briefly, because that was a part of the conversation just then. And so just recently, because, I have to follow this tech sector and thing like this, how I head them off at the past. Like, remember, we invented all this stuff. So if they get the best of us with it, it's like, this is just pitiful. I mean, come on, Kemet. I mean, after all, the Great Pyramids and the geometry and fire. I mean, we got more at stake here than that you can even think about. It's beyond thought. But so what I'm saying is that I never look at anything that's going on like it's like they're doing. It's too much for me. Come on, man. Like, this is a riddle. It's a riddle of the Sphinx. You better figure this shit out or we're all going to die. And dying is not even real. So it's going to be like a loop. Get yourself together. What's happening? So I still deal with and look at and dissect everything going on in the technological field because it is a replica. That's what AI is. It's a replica of the spirit. That's why I told you, motherboard, circuit, stars, all this kind of thing, geometry, hexagrams, antennas, metamaterials, all that stuff is the same thing we deal with on the high levels of the metaphysical. You blow open your third eye and you want, wow, what am I looking at? And then I can show you a pattern. Look at this. This is 1,433.3 hertz on a metamaterial as a cymatic. Was this what you were looking at? Yo, that was it. How did you know that? Because if you close your mind for a moment and you listen to the frequency that you're hearing in your ear that sounds like a buzz or a beep, that actually can be matched. I can show you, I can take you to a tonoscope and match that frequency and you'll hear it reverberate in your ear. And I'll say, right now you're operating at 173 hertz, which is almost where it should be, So being able to dissect this stuff because this is not something they made and that they control. This is stuff that it holds. Silicone and carbon do this. These are the laws of light. Right? So I watch is what I'm saying. I observe and I'm not dumb. So I know what I'm looking at. I know what chips do. I know what ARM devices do. I know what all this stuff does. I've been doing this stuff since I was a little kid. Okay. Like I grew up in it. That was all that was going on. And it was my uniqueness also that me and the computer from the beginning was like, all right, since I'm the Jedi, you're the droid. Let's get it. And I understand it. So I saw this situation recently where, and this is not even related directly to technology, but it is related in a big way. It's about TikTok situation. Okay. So TikTok is supposed to be banned Sunday. Okay. And removed from the United States and all the Android and the Apple stores. Okay. And of course this would be a pretty big thing because everybody, the kids, remember, it's all about the kids. Charlotte Iserbyte. Get it in you, learn what's going on. So all the kids are on TikTok, right? So they've been playing this scene for everybody, this drama like US is against China. This is now Republican versus Democrat, and that we need to get rid of TikTok. And our solution is Instagram Reels. No, but it's like we need to get rid of TikTok and it needs to be over. So I'm like, okay, let's see this. I want to see this. See you do this to $400 billion and a bunch of kids. Let's see how that's going to work out, US. I'm back here with popcorn. I'm Sunday morning. I'm up like, okay, all right. It's still in the App Store. What's going on? And then when you read the response, which is almost nowhere, by the way, of what really happened on Sunday, it lets you know a lot more about, again, what is happening and in the future and confirming what it is that this lady was talking about in relation to the educational system and children. So, in a nutshell, even Walmart now owns a part of TikTok, okay? And now it's becoming TikTok International and TikTok United States. And now $6 billion, according to Trump, is supposed to be now being given to the United States over intervals for the educational system from TikTok. And now they're going to bring it into the United States and allow it. And now we're going to go forward. But see, if nobody was following the story, that would just be, all right, great, we get TikTok. But the story before all of that is that inside of this application is a direct interface with China's system of artificial intelligence, which is like Sauron's eye, according to which Peter Thiel calls it the eye of Sauron. Okay, and that they have already been able to pinpoint that inside of this app is exactly that. Like every time you turn it on, every time it's on, they're watching and they're using the same system that they have in their country that they've always been doing that with, which is AI, and it's very effective at using. It knows everything that's going on. It doesn't take a person sitting back there like NSA trying to show you how they are back there like they got a person at 1,000 desks and they're all watching on every cell phone. Hell no, that is not what's going on. That's not how they could use the data anyway. They use the data for other stuff like what's going on in the background, the heat, the barometric pressures, all this to create a huge map of the world in and out, to be able to go inside and outside of something and around it and upside down it, to be able to fast forward it into the future to see what it's going to look like, what it's going to degrade, when are people going to go where, when is the projected probability of that happening, when is that going to decay? So this is what this thing is up to and working on, right? So what I'm saying is, the point here is that, so this was the issue because it was supposedly against our whole thing to be doing that. But somehow we're doing it. And it's okay. So it just lets you see again, man, be on point about you. Be on point about you. Like, don't get caught up looking at these folks and what they're doing so long. You forget about what you need to do and why you need to do it. Why do you need to know the sky language? Like, we drop 9 codes, 9 symbols inside of ambassador training called the karma codes. And it completely unfolds the whole metaphysical construct of how words, letters, numbers all fit together and tell a story. And how in every single fabric of life, even down to your organs, how all of these are embedded within you, these powers, these jewels. Showing you why it's so important to keep this agenda happening, because you're so valuable. You don't even know the value in your own self. How much do you think one of these costs? How much do you think one of these costs? Right now, I can't go buy anything that functions like this. Or actually, now I can. Unfortunately, because they're now selling children too. Oh, actually I can, because shoot, if I want somebody to just build one of my machines for the rest of their life, I can give them, I don't know, over their lifetime, maybe $3.5 million of fake ass money for all of their time and their energy. Because humans are for sale. Think about this. You know, it was kind of like a divine comedy. We were looking at the Sumerian aspect of exactly, which is like, they want the Sumerian story to be the real story. That's why Guy TV keeps always bringing that Sumerian shit. Because in their story, according to their story, when the intruders moved in, they wanted to create more workers. First, they were doing the work themselves, got lazy, groaned under it. I just want to give you the story real briefly, because it is happening. It's just not happening on that fictitious Disneyland level that people keep going at it with. Let's imagine that in Orion, on the inverted side of the damn hourglass, that they're slavers, that they roll through planet after planet after planet, continent after continent after continent, trying to harvest and suck all of the energy out of it, from the metals to the gold to everything else that's innocent. So they get dispatched to this segment. They land on this shit. There's only primitive beings running around, just like right now. There's primitive cats running around still, right? They get on. They're out of sight, out of mind, because they're looking for the core resources. Basically, the people who are dumb, or the regular beasts, don't have any other use except for beasts of burden. The large ones have some use to drag and to carry this precious ass metals and shit to their ships. And then after a while, like what you see with anyone else, there's a mob develops, basically a mafia, where the beings get together and form a union and say, look, we ain't going to be bringing no more spice back to the inverted side of Orion unless somebody changes the whole political situation going on here. And then, out of a solution, they decide to genetically modify some of the beings that are here. So now imagine, because this is where they say humans come in at, just so you can see these ideals, that the genetic modification was a human being, aka Lulu, who was given sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, 5 senses, opposable thumb, and all these different things to be able to carry on the work. So they can chill out and kick back. Okay? Now I'm just going to show you how this is happening now, but they want to make it like it's thousands of years ago, and that probably wasn't the story, but now this is for sure the story. So they kick back. Now they got you working your ass off. And guess what? One of them, who's more diabolical than the other, the fourth son, if you may, decides that, hey, I got another gig we're going to pull on them. Not only are they going to work for us, they're going to pay us. What, Klaatu? How could you? You can never do that. Sure, we could do it. What we'll do is we'll just take the stuff that's theirs, these resources, these rocks, actually, that don't belong to anybody, to be honest, and we'll sell it to them. We'll even make it look like some of the things we have on the home planet. And we'll sell it to them. So now, all the resources, basically, you have to buy. So now, you're already working, okay, and you have to pay. So then, okay, now, this is it. Lulu can't take no more, but this is a great idea. So then, the eighth son comes in and said, we got to step on this one more time. This is like a guy who wants to cut the dope too much. We're going to step on this one time again. What? Impossible. How? It's impossible. It's very possible. It's called taxes. So how this works, first they work to get the stuff we need. Then we charge them for the things that they use. Then we tax them on those things. And we tax them when they work. And we tax them when they buy things. With this, they're going to be in debt. They're going to feel like they owe us all the time. And they're going to always try to be like us. They're going to want to be like us. They'll even destroy each other just for an opportunity to sit up here at the top of this fucking pyramid where nobody else is but a bunch of crazies. Right? And this is what they can sell if everybody's under the effects of MK Ultra and no other place. So I just want that to be known, that nobody falls for this shit. Nobody in their solid consciousness would even be around them. This is why, for a while, their plans never worked. They wanted some stuff to happen in 1970. Didn't happen. Preference is still there saying, this is not really what we want, but I'm watching still because remember, I'm a watcher, so I gotta watch these goons sometime, like the Facebook mafia, as they call it. And now they deploy Oculus, right? Which is the eye. And now, first of all, most adults don't even have their VR legs. And what this means is that if you get in virtual reality, it starts feeling like you get motion sickness because it's just like, it's not even for your generation at all, okay? But they got it for these kids because when they start using it early, their brain changes a bit to allow them not to get motion sickness because they don't go anywhere anyway. So not to get motion sickness when something is moving, but they're still stationary. Now, when you look at the platform and you see the premium games, how is it possible to sell any of this kind of stuff to children legally? They even have like these games, it's got all these torture weapons and then these zombies. They need to take this torture weapon like a hammer or a knife or a big machete and chop the zombie right in the head. Now, they have the Oculus thing in the hand. They got the VR on their head. They're inside the environment. So there is nothing really, especially in a child's mind, not letting them go too far in their mind with what is actually happening in this instance. Okay? And as I said before, lastly, okay, because this is just that update of what I feel like is relevant, real relevant news. GLM. Microsoft then turns around and gives, I forget the company's name, but they make Doom. Okay, Doom's like an old game. Doom was even out when I was a kid. Right, we played Doom on a 386 with a Macro processor on it. trying to get enough money to buy a sound card. Microsoft just gave him $7 billion. Now, you're going to give somebody $7 billion and we ain't got nothing? If you gave me $7 billion, you're going to feel that on the streets. I don't care where you're at. You're going to be like, yo, drop this off. It's supposed to be like cleanse you out, and they got water over there now. The water is like completely clean, yo. Let's go drink some of it. You give me $7 billion, you're going to feel that, right? So this is this is money to change everything. See, people keep thinking, well, no, it's not enough. And $7 million, I can change the entire world. But see, these creatures, they don't want to change the world in the world that we want to see, that we have as our preference. Because they've been warped since they were little kids. And it was still because we weren't there for them as kids that we had to deal with them like monsters right now. So that's why now it's like, I feel like, man, we just put 10 years gung-ho adults, learn occult knowledge and metaphysics and get yourself together. Now I go sit back real quick in observer mode, ready to absorb, and the fax machine, I still work with the old fax machine with the roller, comes out. Mission with the kids. And then at the bottom it says, you retire after 20 years. Really, normally. As hard as I work, if you may, and fund, because I had a great time too, I gotta do it again. I have to light resplendent again in a direction that because of my nemesis, the one that ends all of my realities that I create, I have to come in for one fell swoop, last ditch effort to take the entire ship out of a tailspin in order to preserve We're hardwired for this. Nobody would be convincing me not to do this. This is what I live infinitely for, to preserve the DNA, to maintain. That's divine masculine. If you want to know what is divine masculine, that's what it is. We'll always show up with shields, full spectrum light for anybody who want to get it. You know, it'd be like the flashy thing on Men in Black if you get hit with it. And ready to actually go in and do what we need to do in order to make this what we prefer. All of us know if I burn you with an iron, you don't want that. It gets as simple as that. With preference and knowing what kind of fields do you really want to be in? What kind of vibes do you really want to be feeling? What do you think is really going to nourish you? So step by step by step, we've been planning this and deploying it. Now, we'll tell everybody here because we're at that 1 hour mark. Secret energy, you may want to poke your head in again. We did a GUI update. That thing's on fleek. I figure all the lights are going to cut on at one time and everybody's going to start using it, especially after something happens over on one of these other systems that now nobody can bear anymore. And they decide, well, if we have our own, we're going to use it. But beyond that, also, it is a place that has resources and it has ways to assist you in getting to the next stage. It's in itself. I always told people that it's like when you want synchronicity to catch, you need to have something synchronicity can come through. You don't want to be like sitting behind 5 locked doors expecting for the cosmos to help you. You know what I mean? You need to get out on the highway of life. Get somewhere where the current can touch you. Secret energy is a beam, a beacon for that. You could come in that space. Next thing you know, you're linking up with somebody that's next door or around the corner from you, and you're on your mission. What is your mission? You're on your own unique mission. I keep hearing folks always say there's only complaints most of the time. I get this huge list of complaints. It's not this, and we don't want to be here. We don't want to do this. And I totally get why you're in that condition, but damn, just think about it. At least I'm even doing this. Like there are people that they have the fan base, they have the resources, and they're sitting back there and they're just like playing with it, toying with it, not even seeing it's your kid's guy. You know what I mean? Like this is your infinite future, and you just haven't woke up to that you're infinite yet. So this is why I stay in this. Lastly, again, if you want to know this, we're not trying to make this hard for you. We're not trying to, you take this class for 10 years. You know, you get all these certificates. What I did inside of ambassador training, sovereignty mentorship, is I put it all there. All of it. From finances to spirituality. I always feel like those are two totally different worlds until you figure out how they all merge together. So that real metaphysical deep dive of really knowing what you're dealing with and talking about and none of the extra sauce, that's there. Real revenue streams, you can still check out Wealthy.io right now. The up, down, up, down, up, down is happening in the financial markets all day. This thing just makes money off of it. It just does. It just works. It may be too good for you to be true, but remember, they don't even have to do that. You may think that, oh, the money can't come like that, brother. They're not even doing that in getting the money. The money is what we need to get away from by solving the solution on money, like infinite money, automated money, done. Get away from me, money. Just go to the account and I debit when I debit. When you build up to a certain thing, then I go bigger debit. That's it. But to be spending all of one's life trying to earn money or big chunks of time trying to earn money when you need to recover your chain code, I just don't think it's a great idea. And if we're in this time, I have one thing that I want to announce. Saturday. It's going to be everywhere. I'm going to send out an invite on emails on Secret Energy. I'll put it on Facebook. It's going to also be on YouTube. It's going to broadcast Facebook and YouTube. Conscious Economic Forum. I'm coming in. I got a keynote. Even, if I get a keynote, I'm going to wear it out in the keynote. And I'm going to take you through the whole linear process of seeing the future of money and energy clearly. And then when we're done with that, we're going to give you an invitation that if you want to come in and learn how to use this stuff like this Instagram and this Facebook like audiences, AI and all that, target audiences, all this kind of stuff, but in the most proficient way to create an automated form of karma-free wealth. I'm going to lay it out again. Now, this is already something that is working. We just keep enhancing it. But I'm going to lay it out from start to finish. So maybe if you're still conflicted about why you need to be on point with your finances, what you're really going to do about this situation, I'm not smart enough. You don't need this intelligence. You can just learn what you need to know. Don't load up too much of this confusion. If you, in just that linear approach as what do I do? I'm saying linear in the way that sometimes you just need an A, B, C, D. Metaphysical conversation, they're like a curve. They take on all sorts of, you be an Gordian knot / a Mobius twist, by the end of a spiritual conversation. But when we're dealing with the world and we're dealing with finances and economy and all this kind of stuff, this is straight. A beam, like get in there, do this, make this move, watch it work. We tested it out already. We're here. We're going to give you not only the content so you can continuously do it. And even if you don't use this, you don't need a bunch of friends. We already have a relevant audience for you. That's us inside the group because we all are something. And it's time for us to begin to use that wisely when it works on a collective level while we're still enhancing it on that private level. So, wholeness and balanced vibrations. Know that I do my best. I hope what I had to say, I feel like even that I may need to go over this again at some point. Just realizing how the DNA really works. How they have us now programming our children directly from the womb. How it don't take some huge ass array and 5G. People crack me up with this stuff. They know nothing about technology. You have 5G already on your router. This is why you have the router in your house. This is why you only to use 5 gigahertz, you have to be in distance, in line of sight from it. It will even automatically switch to 5G. So if it was 5G, it's already in the house. But it's not. That's just more ignorance. Ignorance after ignorance. If you want to know it, go study antenna research. Learn what the megahertz were. Know how to work an oscilloscope. Learn how to take a frequency read from the body. You see what I mean? So it's not pseudoscience. There's a real background to this. They just want you to have the pseudoscience. They don't want you to have the accurate. So that's what I'm here for. It's my pleasure. As I said in the beginning of this, I'm glad to be here. Like I even came into this today. I took a little nap just to make sure I was refreshed. I woke up and I said, man, I'm so glad that I have people like this, beings like this, to get up and do something for. What would I really be if I didn't have that? We all mentor each other. Like imagine all this knowledge and intelligence being used for evil. Me over here planning some kind of real estate project in Dubai of a casino. You know what I mean? Messing up my own chain code for the future. You know, getting everybody else in debt and the debt way back on me. Bad stuff happening. Folks getting stabbed. Niggas getting drunk. Crashing into other people and all of that. And I'm doing all of that. And I'm using all my power. So you see how this works? This is why some folks don't have power. It's the higher beings, if you may, looking out for them. Because when you get some power, now you need to know what you're going to do with it. And if you had a little childhood problems, little ego problems, your mom wasn't there, your father wasn't there, you don't know how that's playing out in your life, so you can clear that up. You feel like everybody needs to serve you. You hit some kind of massive power, and now you got to mesh out all of the, you're going to redundify all of the knowledge again and say it's all yours. Like all of this stuff that you see going on. This all comes from that mentorship not being there and not being present. Those parents not bringing in the true integral ideals. And so that's why we know we got a real solution when we go into this arena like this. For those that are just joining in, thank you. Share it. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt anybody else. Put it on like a story or something like that. Clip whatever your favorite part was out of it and just send it on your story one day. If you want to know if there's anything that I can do. Yes. If you want to ask the 7, is there anything that we can do? What can we do? Get yourself together for sure. I told you that already. If you could do anything else, like share it. You'd be surprised who sees it. You'd be surprised who it touches. Like you'd be surprised what a person's day is like. You'd be surprised what dream they woke up from. What would make them more susceptible to something today that they may not have been yesterday. So that's what we got. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I see everyone again. This is GLM 6. I knew it was going to be something coming through on this. We're going to keep powering through. Some ask, so when are these? They're always around 7 o'clock. What day, what time? It'll always be archived. You'll be able to get it. And if you get a chance to catch it live, of course, we definitely come in. We let others come in online. Today, the build was like, they need to know this. And so I wanted to take time for that and to deliver that to the space as the co-creation. But as you know, if you ask questions and also you pop in on the other side of things, we can also bring you in live, and we'll keep doing that in the future. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you soon. Wholeness.